Amanda says social media is supposed to connect people, but many people find themselves with tons of, quote, friends and still feel a sense of isolation and loneliness. How do you build more meaningful connections, both on and offline?
Well, it's a great question, really relevant to the conversation that we're having today and relevant to sort of modern life, modern technologically connected life. And to answer that question, Amanda, we have to ask, well, what's a connection mean in the first place? What does it mean to be connected to anybody? And the answer to that question is there's lots of ways of being connected. We have all sorts of connections in our lives, and this was true prior to Facebook and Twitter, and those connections really vary in their level of closeness. So we're connected to lots of people who we interact with, even who we interact with regularly, colleagues at work, colleagues at friends who we interact with, friends of friends, professional colleagues, people who do services for us. But we wouldn't say we're close to all of them. There are only a small group of people in our lives that we're close to. And what does close mean? Two researchers who were sort of pioneers of relationship research, John Thibault and Harold Kelly, both of whom are now passed on, said that a close relationship is one where we do a lot of different things with somebody, we have a strong impact on them, and the relationship lasts over a considerable period of time. So if you think about the close relationships that we have in the actual world, not the virtual world, the close relationships we have are people that we share activities with, we do a lot of things with, and we impact them and they impact us. We have a mutual influence on each other that's strong and in many ways immediate. So, and those close relationships matter to us when we are in need especially. So when I have something I need to do or I'm sad, having someone I can turn to that's there for me or that can help me out, really concretely help me out, well, that's what makes that closeness powerful in my life. So now we have Facebook, now we have Twitter. A lot more connections, but there's inherent limitations, technological limitations, to how close those connections can possibly be. Because there's a limited range of things I can share with someone through Facebook. Basically, I can share information, you can share back. I can say, oh, I like what you just said, and you can say, yeah, thumbs up to what you just said. You can say, oh, I feel for you. But you can't bring me chicken soup, not via Facebook. You can't give me my shoulder a squeeze, or you can't wipe away my tears, not via Facebook, not via Twitter. And some of the deepest closeness that we have is defined by those kind of behaviors that are concrete, that are physical, and that are immediate. They're responding when I need you. I've shared something with you, and I get an immediate validation from you. Facebook and Twitter, your responses to what I might disclose there are a couple things about them. One is they don't happen in real time. They happen sort of whenever you get to your Facebook page. And second, they're posted on a public forum for all the rest of our Facebook friends to see, which makes them a little bit less intimate, a little bit less private, a little bit less unique to my personal needs. Now you're sharing your response to me with the whole world. It has a different meaning then. So it's important to modulate our expectations of what kind of closeness we can have through technological means in the virtual world. There's a limit, just an inherent limit to how close we can be. Oh, that we can meet people online. We can maintain connections that we've already developed outside of online through Facebook. But ultimately, to develop real closeness, our expectation as human beings is to bring that into the real world.
I agree. When you think about relationships, we think about emotion. We think a lot about emotion. Yeah. We try to study this deeply, and we try to look at couples talking to one another and conveying how they feel to one another and responding to one another's feelings.
In real time.
In real time, it quickly, and this happens very quickly and often in very subtle ways. And we know from when our relationships are going well that we feel that emotional connection, we feel that bond, and it's very different from the experience that we have, even from a relatively fulfilling connection that we might have through social media. So I think it's important always to recognize that relationships are about emotion, and sometimes media can promote that, social media can promote that, but often that's a different phenomenon, and you really want to preserve that and make that really a special kind of experience that you have with another person in 3 dimensions in real time. The other thing to keep in mind, and what I love about Amanda's question, is she says, how do you build more meaningful connections? And that, what I like about this is it implies that there is a building, that it takes active effort, and that you can learn, and that you can grow and develop and change and figure this out. And you can say, hey, this doesn't feel quite right. This isn't what I want in my social life. Maybe you have a lot of great contacts through social media, and they work for you, and they serve a certain function for you. But you might be yearning for a little bit more than that. And here I think it's important to trust your instincts, talk to other people, realize that it's not always easy to form and create and maintain new relationships. And think about it as a task, that it's something that you really can set out to do and improve in your life. And that might mean having conversations with friends of yours and seeing how they make sense of this. Reading good books. There are many great books about how to avoid loneliness in our lives and really create connection and create warmth, because ultimately what that means is that your instincts are right, that you want to form those connections, because in the long term they'll pay tremendous benefits.
Tremendous. Let me expand on one more point, because you talked about building. Tom talked about building. And there really is, it's an apt analogy. And it's an apt analogy for closeness both online and off. That closeness builds as the result of what could be imagined as a dance. And it's a dance of disclosure, of sharing, of opening yourself up and being vulnerable. And you first do it in small ways. So the first person says, hey, I share something that I don't share with everybody, but I've shared it with you. And the dance continues depending on how that's responded to. Whether the person that you've shared with accepts that, makes you feel good about sharing it, and then maybe reciprocates with something that's also an intimate disclosure. And the dance continues when I respond in a certain way that makes that person feel good about sharing or bad about sharing. You can imagine that the dance will end if you share something and I say, yeah, whatever.
Too much information.
Too much information.
Too fast, right.
Or the dance continues if I say, oh, really? And I make you feel good about sharing, and then I share something too. So closeness in the real world and in the online world tends to develop as a back and forth, a trading of these increasingly open behaviors and vulnerable behaviors. And the dance and closeness comes from finding someone who rewards you for opening up more and more and more, and who opens back. And if you want to develop closeness, you have to risk. You have to open yourself up in that way. The dance won't always continue. You won't always get to closeness, but inevitably that's the path you have to take to try it out.